Ho, ho, ha. That's the sound of a man who doesn't know how to start the show. This is Septic Shock Road Trip.
Right on the road, you hippie.
Me, Clive Davis, and him.
Wrong.
Ron Scott, the hippie hitting Ron Scott. Whichever state he finds them in, he hits them. And he's hitting them in Pennsylvania. Once again, this is our final Pennsylvania episode until we head off to, is it maybe Delaware?
Delaware.
Which is going to be tricky to find something for me.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of Delaware movies, huh? I'm curious. I meant to ask you this: is DC going to be its own state? Because it's not a state. Right?
No, but we're gonna go. We're gonna go. Is it in Maryland or is it the adjoining state? Anyway, whatever state it's in, we do have a special DC choice.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, as we go through.
Phew.
Yes.
Safe.
You can relax, all you DC.
Yeah. I was really sweating there.
So, yes, the Polonia brothers.
Right.
John and Mark. John no longer with us.
Right.
Died quite young, actually, at
37.
Yeah, I was
39.
2008. But Mark is still knocking him out. So, were you at all familiar with the Polonia brothers before, Ron?
No, I wasn't. Yeah.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, the Polonia brothers are twin brothers who started off in the mid-80s, and they're quite, relatively early on. They're quite pioneering in the shot on video kind of horror, those kind of amateurish, I guess, would be the kind word to put it, kind of usually tending towards gore and shock tactics and stuff like that, right? But they were pretty early adopters, and they'd made a couple of films before the one we're going to talk about now, which I've not seen. They did one called Church of the Damned and Hallucinations, but Splatter Farm from 1986 seems to have been their first breakout hit. Sounds a bit generous, but it seems to be the first one of their films that got noticed.
Unnoticed, yeah.
Yeah, on the tape trading circuit. And if you're a horror fan, even if you haven't seen it, there's a chance you may have heard the title Splatter Farm, right? Like, oh, Splatter Farm, that sounds kind of familiar. Maybe I've heard of that, but even if you hadn't seen it. So we should say, actually, it's actually directed by John and Mark Polonia and Todd Michael Smith, who's also in the film as Jeremy. So the Polonia brothers play a couple of brothers who go from their own farmhouse to holiday with their aunt, played by Marion Costley. I don't quite know why they bother going to an identical farm to the one they've just come with. But I guess they're going to go there to chill out for the summer.
Yeah, they don't really want to go, but I think they're being, seems like maybe they're being forced, or maybe their parents are telling them to go, or they're going to help out their aunt or something.
We never see the parents.
No, never.
And it turns out she's a widow, and she has a son, Jeremy, who it's not spoilers, we find out pretty early on in the film he's a homicidal maniac,
right,
who enjoys dismembering and decapitating people, and then licking the wounds, licking the limbs, and using them like he uses a decapitated head to give him a blowjob. That kind of
and the arm. He just use the arm at the beginning.
Yes. Yeah, he gives him himself a hand job. Yeah. So, and even though he seems to be pretty indiscreet about it, and the house, as far as I could tell, is even full of mummified remains and shit. Yeah. Yet it takes the Polonia brothers the entire length of the film
to figure out what's happening.
Meanwhile, Marion Costley has the hots for John. I think it's John, one of them. one of the Polonia brothers, the slightly nicer, the less belligerent one, right?
Yes, right.
Because they do pretty much look alike, and if they
Yeah,
didn't
very.
different t-shirts, then
Well, they did choose to not change the clothes at all during the whole.
I don't.
So at the very least, you can tell
Yes.
this is the one wearing pink and this is the one wearing the Niagara Falls t-shirt. Right?
I think that's why. I think that's why. Because I was thinking the same thing. When's he going to change that Niagara Falls t-shirt?
Because they're there for several days and they never change their clothes. So.
And they both have that kind of hot, skinny leg and tube sock look. Whew.
Right. Yes.
Hot stuff. No wonder the aunt can't keep hands off the
Right.
the little moustaches. I mean, yeah, they've got a look, right? They've got a look. They've got a very yeah. So and yeah, and that's kind of it, really, right? They just see a whole bunch of atrocities, and gore. And has to be said, the gore is actually kind of it's not bad for a low budget film, and it's disgusting looking. That's the thing. It's you don't really want to be touching that. He's like picking it and stuff. It's like, oh no, I don't like the look of that. So I appreciate that, and it also goes like, okay, fair enough. There's fucking millions of films like this, right? But what I think it goes that little bit further, right? So there's like this whole section where Jeremy fist fucks one of the Polonia brothers, licks the shit off his hand, pisses on him, and you're like, whoa, this has gone a bit further than these things normally, because normally it's like a bit of gore and like some metal or something on the soundtrack, and you know which territory you're in, right? But this kind of is a bit more transgressive. And then the whole thing, there's even a sex scene with the aunt and one of the brothers, which is it's not graphic, but it's I didn't think it would go there. Yeah,
and not just a sex scene, but she like drugs him and then rapes him, basically, right? So
and she's always like licking her lips.
Licking her lips and stuff.
Looking at him sat there in the sofa in his tube socks. And what I like about it as well is that mixture. It's a weird mix of like, so there's this insane delirium of gore and shit, and then the rest of the time it's just like, fuck, there's nothing to do here. I'm just gonna sleep on the couch all day.
Yeah. But yeah.
So I mean,
I mean, so yeah, I think they the point of this movie, and probably the thing that got it noticed was that it's like over the top transgressive. It's over the top, taboo, right? They deal with pretty much every taboo topic they can get their hands on, and then fuck it, it's clear, right? So yeah, in the armhole. So yeah, so the but yeah, it was it definitely gives them a very specific style, and it definitely made names for them, I guess, right? So I mean,
as much as they
Mark is still doing this exact same thing, right? So 30 years later, whatever, right? So
so when John died in 2008, they directed, I mean, that's still impressive, 27 films, right? The count's now up to 82.
Yeah.
Insane. Also, I noted this fine piece of dialogue. This made me laugh. This is good. He's a fine boy, and you would be proud of him, even if he did kill you with an axe. So it's got a couple of twists at the end as well, and again, unwholesome use of dynamite or fireworks or something. And it is, I mean, you try not to pick on films like this because obviously it's shot on consumer equipment, right? It's, dodgy looking here and there. But I have to admit, a lot of these films that I watch, like even some of the better ones, they'll have moments which are worth sitting through, but they can be tedious. I have to admit, I was surprisingly, and I'd seen this film before, I was really into this film, like, because I didn't know where it was going. I was actually, it worked on me. It's kind of surreal almost, like it sucked me in, and I enjoyed Splatter Farm. How did you get on with Splatter Farm, Ron?
Yeah, I guess it was the same. I mean, I really appreciate them for what they had to do, you know, and what they were able to do with such a like a basically zero budget, right? So basically whatever they found laying around, basically, right? So the gore was pretty decent considering that they had not much to work with. Yeah, the I was a little found my attention wavering just a little bit in some of like the downtime, because there's a lot of kind of like exposition and, you know, I'm so bored, I'm just going to sleep on the couch stuff. And there's a lot of like,
it was just so, it was like, yeah, what else are you going to do on the farm? Like,
yeah, nothing, but it's like
until lunch, so I'm gonna just
yeah. So, but a lot of it was just sort of like a really quiet. There's a lot of kind of quiet expositional dialogue-y scenes, and I was kind of found myself, okay, let's get back to the good stuff, right? So, but yeah, generally it was not that difficult of a watch, you know. I mean, it's by no means a good movie, but it's considering what they had to work with. I think you know, good for them. I thought they, you know, and you know, they basically made like their names off of this, right? So I mean they both, and this is what they, or what one of them still does, and the other one did until he died, right? So it's so good for them. So that they do what they wanted to do. They obviously knew exactly, they had a plan, and the two of them were in on it together, right? And they decided, we're going to do this. This is going to be our life, and they did it. And so good for them. Yeah. So yeah, and it was
as well from 2020, Return to Splatter Farm, which
oh really?
I haven't seen yet, but I'm kind of interested to see how they link it to if they do at all. I don't.
Well, only one would link it, right? The other one was already dead, right? So.
You know, I'm wondering if Jeremy comes back, or
oh right, yeah,
I don't, yeah, because Jeremy is still alive, dead, right? He's not dead.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and apparently this was also based off of a real true story.
Oh, really?
As it says at the very beginning of the movie.
Oh, right. Yeah, I think that might be ever so slightly a bit of bullshit.
Yeah. Well, I my guess was that there was probably like someone who killed someone on a farm, and that was like the basis for this idea, right? So
yeah. So. And he might have been called Jeremy, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So.
But so you watched because I actually, I'm quite pleased to hear that you could find things of interest in this, actually. But I do know that you have your limits, Ron, and I try not to push beyond them too much. So I gave you one version of this film. I actually watched two versions side by side. Oh. The version you watched was the 20th anniversary cult classic edition.
Oh yeah, I noticed that it said the cult classic edition, and I was like, that's kind of presumptuous of that they they made their, because I thought that was like the actual title, right. So I was like, yeah. So
no, so I watched it side by side with the original VHS. Which is slightly longer, and it's interesting because so basically they got slightly different credit sequences. The music is totally different. There's better music on the DVD you watched. The music on the other version is a little bit more kind of annoyingly kind of low budget, cheapo, kind of repetitive, which kind of adds to it in a different way. But so they're more or less the same film. They're re-edited. I noticed, interestingly, when they did the DVD, they used different takes and like different angles for some of the same scenes. So it's the same scene, but it's just filmed from a different angle. So that was kind of interesting. But they're more or less the same, apart from there's two scenes missing, totally missing from the DVD. One in which these Jehovah's Witnesses come round and Jeremy poisons the kids. And they die and slits the woman's throat. And then there's another scene, and I guess the reason they removed this, because it's quite a good scene, it's one of the more memorable scenes in the film, but it's lifted from the earlier film they made, Hallucinations. They took this out of that film and put it in this film. And in this scene, one of the Polonia brothers, it's a dream sequence where he sat on a toilet with his trousers around his ankle, and as we know, he goes to the toilet quite a lot in this film. He seems to always going, I gotta go take a crap and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And he's on the toilet, he starts bleeding from his mouth, and you don't know what's going on. And then something's dropped in the pan. It's all quite gross. And then he's shit out an enormous kitchen knife into
yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, it mentioned that in one of the reviews on IMDb about shitting out a kitchen knife, and I didn't see that, so I thought there must have been like a cut.
Yeah, it's in the original video version, and then he pukes his guts up, his intestines out. So I guess the reason they removed it is because they were like, well, this is part of hallucinations. It's not splatter
Right.
farm or
Right.
yeah. So I don't know, because now amazingly, hallucinations is now on a Blu-ray double bill with the next film they made, Lethal Nightmare.
Oh, okay.
A boutique Blu-ray. I think there's only like 200 copies or something. So good luck.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure you'll be rushing out to get it right.
Rushing out to get that, yeah.
See if your local 7-Eleven has a copy. Yeah, but yeah, Splatter Farm. I mean, yeah, good on them.
Yeah, good on them. Yeah, good for them. You know, I mean, it's like this is like the, you know, I'm all for, you know, I wouldn't say that it was a great movie, but I'm all for people making stuff, right? And these guys had an idea. You know, they've got they got a plan. You know, they when they did it, so good for them. You know, I think, and it's I think it
went
was
a little bit further than necessary.
yeah, and they did it enough that it sort of made a name for themselves. It went a little bit, did a little something a little bit different than other people did, and it was successful enough to give them their career. So
yeah,
good for them.
Polonia Power.
Yeah, good for them.
Sadly though, we also watched The House That Screamed.
Yeah.
From 2000, right? Again, the Polonia brothers strike again. They're not both. There's only one of them in it, right? If I remember correctly, one of them's in.
Yes. Yeah.
As like he's like a gas station attendant or something.
Yeah.
But the main.
Well, out of curiosity, I'm curious because, as I mentioned when you first mentioned this movie that we were watching this movie, that I was like 2000 is a little bit out of the purview of this this particular thing. So of all the movies that they made, I mean, they made, you know, like as you said, 27 together or something like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were in the 80s and 90s. Why did you choose this one as the other one?
That's a very good question. I can't remember. I think it was a mixture of wanting to see one I hadn't seen before, wanting to see one that was actually available.
Oh, okay.
And then maybe kind of showing that they were still at it.
Okay.
At this stage and still to this day, right? So yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Now I agree with you. I didn't choose wisely here.
Right.
Because this is one of the. I mean, to be honest, even this one shows a little bit more imagination and flair than a lot.
Yeah. I mean, look, I guess we'll get into this one, but to be honest, I don't think it was terrible, this movie, right? So I mean,
I agree with you.
Yeah, I think for independent filmmakers that have probably zero budget, like not even like a small budget, they have like nothing. They have whatever they have in their bank account.
Yeah,
they're probably bankrolling it all themselves, and whoever else would give them money, right? So that, I mean, it was pretty decent. You know, I mean, you know, it's better than I could have made. You know, with a camera, right? So you know, so it's, you know, I mean, again, not a great movie, but it's decent for what they're doing and for what they're trying to do. And there's a lot of like really kind of like innovative kind of, you know, use of the camera and use of kind of special effects, you know, like that. They have the ghost with like the you know, who's all light, you know, like they, you know, do the special effect where half the screen is light where the ghost is. I mean, it's pretty cool that they could do that. I mean, it's you know, I hand it for them for doing. They did it their way. You know, it was not. You know, I'm a little surprised that no studios ever took a chance on these guys. Really, they seem to be always doing it themselves, because I mean, they were never. I mean, again, they're very niche and they're kind of, they push the envelope a little bit, but they had some pretty good ideas. And I think if anyone had ever given them, you know, a little bit of money and had given them a little bit of like, you know, help with framing and pacing and things like that, you know, if they, you know, given them some like an editor or some of that, I think they probably could have produced some really decent stuff.
Well, look at the stuff they're doing now. I mean, some of the stuff they've done, Mark's done in more recent years is very much in line with things like The Asylum or Sci-Fi Channel, things like Land Shark and you know, kind of like parody.
Looks like he's doing a lot of like kind of like what is that called? Like tornado shark?
Yeah, that
Sharknado
kind
tornado
of, yeah.
stuff. Doing
So
that kind of stuff, yeah. So
I'm wondering if it might be the case that maybe they have been approached and they've actually turned people down.
oh yeah.
I mean, it could be, or they could be like, no, actually, fuck you, because you know what, we enjoy
I like doing this shit.
whatever the
This is what I
fuck
like
we
to
want
do.
to
Yeah.
do.
So yeah, it's possible. Yeah.
So this one begins with this a slightly straight again, but there's always something in there. That's what I like. Is there's always something a little bit, as well, just for a bit of added spice. So in this one is by the turn of the century, the year 2000, most of life's mysteries will have been answered or solved, all but one. The question is, this is Criswell level shit, right? This is like,
yeah.
So that was interesting. Yeah, it's basically a writer who, and again, loses his child in a house fire, right? But it's interesting that they added the flashbacks about them having arguments, and then she went to sleep with a cigarette, and like it's a little bit darker than they normally, you know. And he's a horror writer, and he wants to write his next book in a real haunted house for you know, inspiration, but it turns out, of course, it really is haunted. And yeah, there's all these kind of different, there's a killer doll, and there's, like you said, this ghost, and there's a seance, and there's a blind man who looks, I couldn't tell, suspiciously like both Bradley Cooper and Michael Fassbender at the same time. I was wondering if it might have been an early role for either one of them, but it's not.
It's not.
No. But it's like you said, again, it's like it would be so easy for them just to do a straight up and down version of this, and you know, fair enough. But yeah, they're definitely, you know, they're always trying to do something a little bit different. And this is one of the lesser ones for me. I've seen some other ones that I enjoyed a whole lot more than this. But still, it's not just utterly dreadful, and even if it was dreadful, they didn't waste the entire GDP of a third world country to make it.
Yeah, I guess. But I think for these guys, E for effort, you know, like for everything, you know, I think they you know, they do it all themselves, you know, you can tell that it's really like homegrown stuff, and that they, you know, the two of them, they sit down, they write it together, and they make it together, you know, and they know what they want to do, and 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 I think they you know, it's not great, but it's different, you know, they try to do something different or unique with it, so good for them. So I think, you know, it wasn't, I didn't feel like I'd wasted my time watching it. I felt like I'd watched someone's like project. So yeah, good for them. Yeah. So yeah.
In fact, I would go even so far as to say you can imagine them being, you know, potentially being quite inspirational for low budget filmmakers.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So sort of like the Sam Raimi school of filmmaking, right? So
exactly. There is a House That Screamed 2 as well, but I haven't caught up with that one. But I am kind of curious. I mean, carefully treading here and there, but I think I will continue making my way through the Polonia brothers filmography, because there are some. If you're looking for a good one, Ron, next I recommend Razor Teeth. They're like a lake killer fish film. I remember being quite a bit of fun. So
cool. Okay. Yeah, I noticed that he Mark has a lot of shark movies in his filmography, so I think he likes water predators.
Or he's cleverly trending, you know, towards things that, because there's a few. He's there's a series of like Planet of the Apes kind of rip-offs things.
Oh, is there? Okay.
I mean, there's so many of them. I don't know how accessible they are, like if you can see them all online really easily, or or but certainly worth dipping your toe in now and again just to see what they're up to. I think
right.
I'll have some fun in the future, and if I come across any real gems, I shall let you know, Ron.
Okay, great.
Right,
all right,
Delaware awaits.
Off to Delaware. See you, Pennsylvania.
It's great to know. Never mind. Brain fart. Bye.